Hey gang, welcome to Vilnius, Lithuania. So Vilnius is the capital. It's a lovely city, probably underrated really. And before anything else, I guess I need to explain that title. Vilnius, the G-spot of Europe? Well, I did not make that up. That was actually a quite controversial marketing campaign in 2018. Vilnius city themselves came up with that slogan, the G-spot of Europe. Nobody knows where it is, but when you find it, it's amazing. And it came with a poster of a lady kind of laying back on a bedsheet, and she's clearly in ecstasy. And on the bedsheet, a map of Europe is printed, and she's grabbing the spot of Vilnius. From what I hear, it was a fairly successful campaign. After the advert, a lot of people Googled Vilnius. So today we'll try to find out if indeed Vilnius is the G-spot of Europe. Is it worth it? They've got those old Soviet buses here with the electric cables on top. That's kind of cool. So Lithuania, it's a fairly small country. Vilnius itself, it's not very big. It's less than 600,000 inhabitants. And Lithuanian language seems pretty difficult. It's actually one of the oldest languages in the world. And if you want to know how to say thank you, well, that's fairly easy. You just fake a sneeze, because thank you is achoo. And Vilnius is great because it's very green. You do not feel like you are in a capital city. The total population of Lithuania seems to be dropping down every year. There are a few reasons why. First, every lady has on average 1.48 babies. So that's not a lot. And on top of that, there's a great level of education here in Lithuania. So a lot of young people move abroad because they have great jobs opportunities. I know because there are a lot of people from Lithuania in London. 100,000. And on top of that, very sadly, the suicide rate here is particularly high. We're not sure why. The long and grey winters might play a big part. You'll see a lot of shops in town selling amber jewelry and accessories. Amber has been traded here for millenniums, really. It is a special form of stone that originates from tree resins. And it has been used for centuries in folk medicine. In France, they still use it when babies are teething. They still give them ambers, bracelets and necklaces to avoid the pain. And inside Vilnius, you'll find a different republic, the Republic of Užupis. In Užupis, you have to smile, you have to go less than 20 kilometers an hour. You see a Mona Lisa on the sign, it's because you have to love art. And if you see the little car going into the canal, that's what happens to you if you don't like art. And the bar behind the sign, it's the Parliament, or the Parliament. It is basically the hipster or bohemian or artistic area of Vilnius. But it's not a joke, although it started as a joke in 1997, so fairly soon after that the country finally got its independence from the USSR in 1990. So, fairly soon after, they created the Republic of Užupis. And the Republic has its own constitution. There it is written on the wall in many different languages. Apparently, the constitution was written in 3 hours, and they were a bit drunk. And they also have their own army of 11 independent soldiers. Now, Užupis is amazing. Apparently, in the late 90s, an apartment here would cost you 10,000 euros, when now it's over 100,000. And it's like an open-air gallery, so you can come here for a little stroll and just admire the art. So today Lithuania is part of NATO, it's part of the European Union, they pay with euro. It is a very green country, half of the country is forest, and it is the flattest country in the world. I think the highest point is 230 meters. They also have a great university. I only had a day and a half really in Lithuania, but I wished I had a bit longer because there's a lot to see outside of Vilnius. I wish I had had time to go and see the Hill of Crosses, which is a hill with thousands of Christian crosses, apparently very impressive, and the Hill of Witches, which is a hill with a lot of pagan statues and witches. The old town of Vilnius is under World UNESCO Heritage. Today, Lithuania is a fairly small country, but at one point it was one of the largest countries in Europe, would you believe? In the 15th century, at the time of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, it went all the way from the Baltic Sea till the Black Sea. And the main religion here, it is basketball. Apparently Lithuanians are really good at basketball because they tend to be quite tall, and it's one of the only countries that has ever beaten the United States at basketball in the Olympics. Now, in terms of actual religion, I guess we can say the main religion here it is Catholicism, as opposed to Latvia, where it was actually Lutheran Protestant. But generally, they are not very religious. This is St. Anne's Cathedral here. Apparently, Napoleon was a big fan of that church, because Napoleon did come all the way here. So people are not very religious, and they have managed to include some pagan rituals into their Catholicism. For example, they have the Easter Granny. In most other Christian countries, you have the Easter bunnies, right? Well, here, it's the Easter Granny. She comes and hides the eggs. She comes from the forest. And they do have bunnies helping the granny, but it's basically the Easter Granny that puts the eggs down. Before Catholicism here, they used to have different gods and goddesses, they were polytheist. This is a statue of Medina. She was the goddess of animals and forest. To give you an idea, out of the people that do consider themselves religious, about 70% are Catholics. But you also have Orthodox, because we still have a lot of Russian population here. And if you want an amazing view, you can go up to the castle. This is the castle of Gediminas. He was one of the grand old dukes of Lithuania, and he is, according to legend, the creator of Vilnius. There is a legend here. Apparently, Gediminas was hunting over here when he had a dream. He dreamt of a giant wolf, an iron wolf. So he went to see a priest. Well, according to some version of the story, he went to see a magician. But at the time, the border between science, magic, and religion was not quite straight. So he went to see the magician to ask him about the signification of the dream. And the magician said that apparently he had to create a city here, so he created Vilnius. This little mural here might look like classic street art, really. Well, it's not. It's actually augmented reality. There's an app, I think the app is Estonian. You scan the street art and it moves. Right, let's talk about food. I was lucky enough to have tried Lithuanian food before because there's a lot of Lithuanians in London, so I had tried some of their meals before. But there's a lot of soups called beetroot soup, like this one here. That's lovely. You've got the potato pancakes like those one here. What is also very nice and probably very caloric, so probably not very nice for your bum, it is the fried garlic rye bread. It's lovely, but probably very heavy. It's not unique to Lithuania, though you also find it in the other Baltic states. Now, Vilnius also has its share of horrible history, having been occupied by the Nazis. This was the Jewish ghetto. Sadly, through the Second World War, about 10,000 Jewish were killed. There were not really any concentration camps here, they were shot. Apparently, there's a diary left by a little boy that lived here. His name was Ikokas Radoveski. Apologies if I don't pronounce this right. A little bit like the Anne Frank of Vilnius. And apparently, the diaries are very moving. And after the Second World War, it was the Russians that occupied for about 50 years. They forced the locals to abandon their language and to abandon their churches as well. Luckily, Lithuanian language was able to survive because they managed to print some books in Lithuanian in different countries and then smuggle them back here. Some of the churches that were abandoned had been used for different functions. One of them was transformed into a basketball pitch, would you believe? And apparently before the visit of John Paul II, they had to very quickly change it back. This is an abandoned church where we went for lunch. If you wonder what's the funny drink, this is fermented rye bread. It's non-alcoholic. It was an interesting restaurant. It is staffed by people with learning difficulties. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of Vilnius. One more little detail. If you forget your contact lenses, don't worry, there's a vending machine at the airport. I had not seen those before. Not for me though. I'm very short-sighted. I'm -13, they don't have mine.